Why do some people warn you not to learn from Sima Yi?
Because if you truly mastered everything he used to survive and ultimately win, success would find you sooner or later. But the problem is this: most people fail at the very first gate. In an ancient era, he spent his entire life with only one wife. Could you do that? And that is merely the beginner's lesson.
Sima Yi
Was not terrifying because he was smarter than everyone else. The Three Kingdoms era was never short of brilliant minds. Zhuge Liang was smarter than him. Zhou Yu was smarter than him. Even many younger talents within Wei possessed greater brilliance and flair. What made
Sima Yi
the final survivor was his ability to control himself to a degree that was almost inhuman. What truly allowed him to outlive every rival can be summarized in 7 words: calculated weakness, disregard for failure, feigning stupidity. It sounds simple, but once you peel back each layer, you begin to understand why this old man made an entire age wary of him. 1. Calculated weakness. Year 234, at Yuan, Zhuge Liang led his final northern expedition. This was no longer an ordinary military campaign. It was a decisive battle fueled by the last years of his life. He wanted to force
Sima Yi
into open battle, but
Sima Yi
refused to fight. Zhuge Liang knew exactly what kind of man he was dealing with, and what he feared most: humiliation. So he sent a set of women's clothing to the Wei camp. The meaning behind the gift was viciously precise. It was not merely an insult. It was a public slap delivered before the eyes of the entire army and the world itself. A direct accusation: you are a coward hiding in your shell. You are a woman. Had it been Xiang Yu, he might have drawn his sword and charged to the death. Had it been Zhou Yu, perhaps he would have coughed blood from rage. But
Sima Yi
Yi's reaction chilled everyone to the bone. He did not become angry. He did not tear the clothes apart. He did not slam the table in fury. He calmly accepted them and even wore them, strolling around as though nothing had happened. The entire army burst into laughter. Many people therefore concluded that he was weak. Completely wrong. People saw him wearing women's clothing, but they failed to see the calculations inside his mind. What would happen if he marched into battle? Most likely, he would fall into Zhuge Liang's trap, and once defeated, he would lose not only soldiers, but also his power, his status, and perhaps even the survival of his entire clan. What was the price of wearing those clothes? Only his pride. One side was dignity, the other was survival.
Sima Yi
Chose the side that benefited him. That was the most frightening thing about him. He did not act according to emotion, he acted according to outcomes. Restraint has never been weakness. Restraint is the ability to swallow anger in order to preserve the greater game. Ordinary people feel insulted and immediately want revenge. Those who are truly formidable quietly calculate instead. If I lose my temper now, what exactly do I gain? In the modern world, it is the same. Your boss humiliates you, a client gives you impossible demands, a colleague shifts blame onto you. Most people react instinctively, argue back, quit, slam the desk, declare, "I'm done." But emotional outbursts usually provide only a few minutes of satisfaction, while the consequences may linger for years. Someone like
Sima Yi
would think differently. If I endure this once, what do I keep? Money, opportunity, connections, time to grow stronger? It is not that they do not feel pain. They simply understand that some humiliations must be swallowed in exchange for the right to strike later. Drawing a sword takes only a moment. Sharpening it takes 10 years. Every time he bowed his head, he was secretly sharpening that blade. 2. Disregard for failure. Calculation alone is not enough. Life contains one especially bitter truth. Sometimes you calculate everything correctly and still lose.
Sima Yi
Spent his life contending with Zhuge Liang, but if you examine the battles one by one, he actually lost far more often than he won. At Shangfangul, he nearly burned alive. During the empty fort strategy, he retreated because of a single zither. Again and again, Zhuge Liang pressured him to the point where he barely dared engage directly. If you judged purely by military victories,
Sima Yi
hardly resembled an invincible mastermind. So why was he the one smiling at the end? Because he possessed something most modern people lack: the ability to treat failure lightly. This is the rarest ability of all. People today fear failure far too much. One failed exam and they believe their life is ruined. One wrong relationship and they decide no good person exists anymore. One failed business and they conclude they are worthless. But
Sima Yi
he was different. He was insulted, yet he smiled. He was doubted, yet he endured. He was cornered, yet he kept living. He never viewed failure as the end. He viewed it as the cost of staying in the game longer. Zhuge Liang was the kind of man who could not permit himself to fail. He had to win. He had to be perfect. He had to push himself to the limit. And in the end, he burned away his own life at the age of 54. What about
Sima Yi
if he could fight, he fought. If he could not, he defended. If he could not defend, he retreated. If retreat failed, he pretended to be ill and lay low. It sounds utterly unheroic, but he lived to 73, long enough to watch Cao Cao die, Cao Pi die, Cao Rui die,
Zhuge Liang.
die. One after another, men more brilliant than him vanished from the stage. Only he remained. Many people believe success belongs to those who run the fastest. Wrong. Life is more like a marathon hidden in fog. The victor is not always the strongest runner, but often the one who simply does not collapse halfway through. Today, countless young people trade health for KPIs, youth for money, sanity for achievement. But if one day the body can no longer endure, then everything gained through desperation merely becomes a palace built for someone else to inherit.
Sima Yi
Understood this clearly. That is why he never forced himself into becoming a flawless hero. He only needed to survive, because the last person still standing on the chessboard is the one who gains the right to define victory and defeat. But survival alone was not enough. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy is not your rival, it is the person sitting above you. The moment your talent begins to make your superiors uneasy, danger begins. And this is where
Sima Yi
unveiled his final technique, feigning stupidity. The most frightening thing about him was never his intelligence. It was his ability to conceal it. Cao Cao once looked at him and said, "This man bears the face of a traitor." If it had been someone else, they would have desperately tried to prove their loyalty, but
Sima Yi
did not. He immediately withdrew from public life and pretended illness for years rather than accept office. Later, during the era of Cao Shuang, the same thing happened again. Oppressed to the extreme, he continued acting. He acted so convincingly that he spilled porridge across his own clothes while eating. He spoke incoherently like a senile old man. Cao Shuang sent spies to investigate him. What they saw was merely an old man 1 foot in the grave, no longer any threat at all. And then what happened? The coup at Gaopingling. In a single night,
Sima Yi
overturned the board. He annihilated Cao Shuang's entire faction. His whole life resembled a blade hidden inside a rotting sheath, never dazzling, never boastful, but when finally unsheathed, it was already too late for everyone else. Many young people today fail not because they lack ability, they fail because they are too eager to prove how capable they are. They enter a company and immediately want to outshine veterans. The moment they gain a little competence, they rush to correct their superiors. They constantly need to win every argument. And the result? The first person the group begins to guard against is usually them.
Sima Yi
Understood a profound truth. Intelligence is a capability, but knowing when to appear unintelligent is wisdom. Sometimes making others feel safe around you matters more than making them admire you. Knowing when to step back, knowing when to share benefits, knowing how to hide sharpness, that is not weakness. That is avoiding becoming the target of every arrow.
Sima Yi
Was like water, soft on the surface, yet impossibly enduring. When facing rocks, water avoids them. When meeting cliffs, it flows around them. But given enough time, water still carves through mountains. He was not the brightest figure of the Three Kingdoms era, but he was the one who endured until the very end. From a side character no one paid attention to, he slowly stepped onto the center of history's stage. He used his entire life to write one cold-blooded rule. This world does not always belong to the smartest people, nor does it belong to the most talented. Sometimes it belongs to those who are patient enough, tough enough, clear-headed enough to swallow their pride, and patient enough to wait for the right moment. When life feels unbearably difficult, remember the old man at Wuzhangyuan, mocked by the world, wearing women's clothing before the three armies. Yet his expression never changed, because he understood one thing perfectly. Those who cannot endure small humiliations rarely preserve great ambitions, and those capable of swallowing what the world itself cannot swallow are often the ones who eventually reach places others never can.